How's it going, everybody? The Roundtable of Rathe here with four members of the team, and counting myself, to discuss our initial thoughts on Prism, the newest character in Flesh and Blood. Well, the newest class in Flesh and Blood, one of the four new characters. And so today I am joined by Chris, Bob, and Ryan. And before you guys, tell me how your day's going and stuff, I do want to just say that I'm grateful to have all of us here getting ready to talk about some Flesh and Blood. It's been a long time since the four of us have recorded any type of content together like this. So I'm excited. Chris, how's the day going? How are you?
Doing well. Just looking forward to hopefully learning something. Ryan's going to teach us all, and Bob's going to teach us all something about the what's her title? The sculptor of the Arklight.
Oh, yeah. She
But
sculpted
yeah,
it.
glad to be here. Thanks for setting everything up.
Oh, dude, no problem. Ryan, how's it going?
Dude, it's going well. I just realized this is the first time we've done like kind of a video cast. So staring at Bob's tank top over there is probably gonna be pretty distracting.
You're right.
So hopefully we'll be able to give you guys some facts with this distraction going on the whole time.
And Bob, obviously, for the viewers that don't know, Bob is notorious for rocking tank tops. So he's the one in there.
You know, I like a good tank top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won a store championship and Star Wars Destiny wearing a tank top, and the legend was created that day, I guess. And then tank tops have been my
He hasn't won a game
my
since.
go-to since then.
The hunkiest
Have
guy.
yeah. We don't play Star Wars Destiny anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad everybody's
But yeah, excited to talk about some Prism.
Yeah. So we're gonna kind of just dive right in here. Initial thoughts. I just do want to put out like a disclaimer. This is not like how we think you should play Prism or the 100% best way meta to play Prism. It is just our team's initial thoughts on playing the character now for about 3 weeks, playing against the character now for about 3 weeks, and we want to kind of make some content, talk about some of her cards, what interested us, and why some of us really gravitated towards this character. So, Chris, you've been, kind of dove right into Prism right off the gate. What attracted you to the class and why?
Well, kind of funny you say that because initially during spoiler season, I wasn't really too excited about trying her. I was kind of more, before I got the product, I was hoping to kind of go either towards Leviah or Chain, but just the way my packs ended up, I ended up opening the Phantasmal Footsteps and the Luminaris, and then also coincidentally, just a ton of my Majestics were like Light Illusionist cards or Illusionist cards. So the stuff I opened just basically kind of threw me in there and just told me to start trying it. So that's really the reason why I am playing it, and that's the only hero I've played so far. In our webcam games with our league and stuff, I haven't played anybody else to this point. So just kind of the way it happened is kind of a crazy situation with, I feel like your guys' packs were kind of more spread out, and I was kind of like in this lane of, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. So
Yeah,
She chose you.
She did.
exactly. The poles of destiny. They will.
yeah, exactly.
They will guide you. Ryan, you've played a lot of Prism as well as some Warrior, and I know it's a hodgepodge of everything for the most part. But what attracted you about Prism, and what made you want to get into this new Illusionist hero?
Yeah, so unlike Chris, I think when she was spoiled, I was like immediately like, okay, that's what I want. That's where I'm going to end up. And I played her during the pre-release event. I was able to pull like a Genesis, and I built a pretty solid deck and did pretty well in the pre-release. And then based on my pulls, I had like a cold foil Raiden. I pulled that Lumina Ascension, so I just immediately went to Bolton just because I had some cool cards of his, and we nobody else was testing him. But I always knew that I would end up back on the Prism train. Like that was where I wanted to just kind of settle. And so now that I'm, diving in and building her and playing her in Blitz and CC, this is kind of where I've wanted to end up.
I mean, and your favorite reason go ahead and show the card.
I mean, I don't know if you guys have stared at these like feet here before. I mean, just sitting.
Oh, we got a Rex Ryan over there.
Sitting at the table, just staring at that. I mean, it's motivation to win games right there. I mean, that's all you need to see.
Or some big feet fan here at the round table. And then Bob, you were kind of on the fence about who to dive into. I remember at the start, you were kind of tickled a little bit by Bolton because you pulled his boots, right? The vest,
I did, yeah.
Right. So what made you want?
Since Ryan's showing those feet. Check out these feet. Ooh.
Everybody's just swagging their feet. So then, what made you?
All right. Well, that's the only swag I got right now. So yeah, like you said, I'm normally like a warrior player. I played Dorinthia a lot in the past, and so like obviously the obvious choice for me would have been to go towards Bolton. You know, I made a Bolton deck, and kind of like Chris mentioned, a lot of the cards that I got were all light. I barely got any chain or like Livia cards, so like I was kind of like, well, I mean, Prism, her cards, I do have to say, and I think you can all agree, have some of the most beautiful artwork on them of any Flesh and Blood card that there are. I'm not saying the best artwork because I'm sure our other teammate Mark will say that, you know, the chain artwork is not, it's cool, but I don't know if I would necessarily say it's beautiful artwork. But yeah, I think that they're just cool cards. She's got a cool mechanic. She can hit you hard. I think it's got a lot of promise. So,
all right, awesome. So speaking of the mechanic you had just brought up, tell me if one of you wants to take over this, because I know there are various ways that someone can go about playing this character. Tell me about her main mechanic, maybe a little bit about how spectral shields can be important, and or why attacking with these big attacks that we're going to discuss in the future is another route. So anybody can jump in here. What is her main mechanic, and why would a new player want to, you know, test her out?
I mean, I don't know if she has one main mechanic. She actually, in my eyes, she has kind of three, which is really interesting. And I know like Flesh and Blood's so awesome because each character feels just completely unique. Even now that we're getting dual classes, like the two warriors that we have are just completely different from each other that you're playing even in CC. But Prism has like the three cool things. One, she incorporates the new soul mechanic where you want to put cards into her soul to charge her up, kind of. She can create spectral shields, which are a new type of token, which actually blocks one piece of damage from your opponent. So they act as kind of an additional barrier from your opponent's attacks. And if you can stack up a bunch of them, then you're kind of in the clear from any type of big threat from your opponent because you're not burning cards from your hand. So that really is awesome. Then her weapons, her Iris of Reality as well as the Luminaris, allow you to attack with those shields. So now not only are they blocking and defending you, but now they're acting as like weapons. And depending on which weapon you use, it's either like a Kadachi one cut or it's a 4 go again, which is crazy. And then her other kind of signature, depending on how you build a deck, she's got probably the most efficient costed cards in the game. Now they come with a drawback, and we'll get into that. But she's got cards that are 1 resource for 7 attack, 2 resource for 7 attack or 6 attack, and they all have kind of on hit effects, which hasn't been like we haven't had any character with that efficiency in the game. And then lastly, she does have this new kind of instant, which is an aura, and it's the first time really where the auras aren't going away after your turn. And all of those auras, not only can you attack with them with her weapons and stuff if you're pitching right, but you can they also have kind of different ongoing static effects that kind of make life a little bit harder for your opponent. So she is kind of multifaceted in what she can do, which is why she's awesome. So we'll get into some of that kind of coming up right now, but that was just a brief overview as to what Prism brings to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I've played against her. I have not piloted a deck of hers yet, and your deck compared to Chris's deck, even in just the games that we've played so far, vastly two different styles. Like you said, multiple ways to build this character, multiple ways to try to kill your opponent. There's probably a super control variant out there as well, I could imagine. So what I do want to do here is I just want to talk a little bit about all of the new cards that came out for this character, so that when somebody goes looking into making a Prism deck, or just in general interested in Prism, I want to talk really quickly about each card and, what you guys feel about the card. Is it an auto include? Is it fundamental to this character? And just in general thoughts and feelings. So not to spend too much time on each one, but I will be pulling up the yellow pitch version on the screen of every card, just because that's kind of her theme here. So before we dive in, I do want to read her ability just to drive home that point you just talked about, making the spectral shields. And so for a once per turn instant for 2 resources, you may banish a card from Prism's soul, create a spectral shield token. And they made that cost 2 pretty purposely, because having some yellow pitches in your pitch zone ends up being a really important mechanic for this character. So really cool ability. And let's dive into some of her cards. Let's start with these heralds here. So the War-Tune Herald is a common card for her. The yellow one I have pulled up here is a 1 cost, 6 power attack. If the War-Tune Herald hits, put it into your hero's soul. And it has the Phantasm clause, which I will read this one time, and then moving forward, we'll just assume that you, the viewer, have now an understanding of Phantasm. So Phantasm is if the War-Tune Herald is defended by a non-illusionist attack action card with 6 or more power, destroy War-Tune Herald and close the combat chain. So, like Ryan was saying earlier, the cost per the power of the attack is super efficient, but they come with that Phantasm clause, which is kind of the drawback. So, I'll ship this one over here to Chris. War-Tune Herald, is this a card you've been playing? If so, what colors, and initial thoughts on the card?
Yeah, initially, early on, I kind of overlooked this one, but the more I've been playing, I've been finding myself slotting basically all 9 of them. Or 6 if you're playing Blitz, but I've been playing red, yellow, and blue in my most recent iterations because, as Ryan mentioned, it's just so efficient. It's only $1, and it's a huge hitter, and you want to get it in your soul. And something else to take note is like all the heralds we're going to talk about block for 3, and when you have these other cards in your deck, the auras we'll get to later that have no block value and things like that, you kind of find yourself in some weird spots where you don't have as many cards to block as you think you might in some turns. But I think this card is basically auto include in any style. It doesn't even matter really. I don't think, if you're trying to be controlly or more aggressive. I mean, obviously the aggressive build, you're definitely going to play it, but maybe the more controlly builds would cut a few, but I kind of find that I don't really think this would be the first one on the chopping block. I think you got to keep this in for sure.
Cool. Anybody else want to chime in?
100% agree.
Bob, yeah.
No, he covered everything. I think that's a solid assessment on War-Tune Herald. Good job, Chris. Starting off strong.
Yeah, I mean, geez. And it's got a cool name, right? You just feel kind of strong when you're playing it. All right, up next,
Absolutely.
We have the Herald of Tenacity. So this is a 2-cost card. Dominate. Ooh, interesting. If the Herald of Tenacity hits, put it into your hero's soul. 5 attack for the yellow. Phantasm clause again. And then I will just assume, I'm sorry, for you people, for everybody watching, since I'm pulling up the yellow card, just know that the red card is usually 1 more attack, and the blue card is 1 less attack. However, all their defenses are still the same. And obviously the pitch value is, different. But Ryan, Herald of Tenacity, is this a fundamental card, and what colors have you been playing, and which colors would you recommend?
So, exact opposite of War-Tune Herald. I agreed with what Chris said there. I think this is the worst Herald that is in the game currently, and the reasoning, I know Dominate's there, and I know one of my favorite cards that we're going to get to also has Dominate, but Dominate is just different in a Phantasm build, because it doesn't matter if they can only defend with 1 card. If it's a 6, it gets destroyed anyway, so you're not really doing much. And you just can get better value with the other heralds, I think. So I currently have only 2 blues in my main deck, and the only reason is because I just needed 2 additional block 3 blues that were also light cards to feed some of the other cards that I have. But I don't think that this is a necessity. I don't like this card in my opinion, I think it's the worst of the Herald suite.
Oh, some hot takes there. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I think the 2 cost is kind of expensive, just for any card, and if it's a 2 cost, it better have a really good effect. And like Ryan said, the dominate's almost negated with the Phantasm, so it's not really worth it in my opinion either. This would be a first one I would cut,
except for War Tune.
Not all.
That's so.
Well, I mean, most of them do, but like the effects are the effects are better though.
Yeah, you're right.
The effects are better.
You.
Well, I think. Well, let me just double check.
Except for War Tune, yeah.
Okay, checks out. Or some of them cost 4 technically.
I thought we were just talking about the Heralds. Friendly banter.
Oh my gosh! All right, you silly gooses. I'm moving us along here. So, Herald of Tenacity.
Remember who's on top, Ryan.
Officially from Ryan. Officially, Herald of Tenacity trash. I'm just kidding.
You can go on record.
All right.
I think. Sorry,
ahead,
Jim.
Chris.
I think. Kind of with Ryan there, when you're trying to build the Prism deck and you're going through the pool, like, obviously right now there aren't a ton of cards to choose from, and a lot of the generics from Welcome to Rathe and like Arcane Rising and Crucible don't really fit super well, at least in my opinion, into the deck. So I tend to play 3 blues just as blockers and pitch cards because you don't have many better options. So like Ryan was saying, you kind of got to figure out which Heralds, as we go through the Heralds, we'll figure out, which ones you really want to have the reds or the yellows to actually try to attack with, or you're just going to have the ones for sure you're only going to block with it, only going to pitch with, and really not try to attack with them. So something to keep in mind when you're going through.
If you're going to include a blue, you might as well have it be a card with the dominate keyword, because if you ever did get it back later in the game, that could...
I think if you're ever playing it, I think you're in bad shape. Like honestly, if you're ever playing Herald of Tenacity, I think either you did something wrong or you got a terrible hand and it's like, wow, this is brutal.
Alrighty, well, moving on. This is good information, especially for me, the non-Prism player. We're going to look at the Herald of Rebirth. It is, yes, indeed, a 2-cost card. If the Herald of Rebirth hits, put it into your hero's soul and put up to 1 card with Phantasm from your graveyard on top of your deck. Put this card face up into your hero's soul. That's the keywords. And then it has Phantasm. The yellow one is a 6 attack, so the red is most likely a 7 and the blue a 5. Anybody want to touch base on Herald of Rebirth? Bob, have you played this card at all? If so, give me your thoughts, or if not, we can kick it to somebody else.
I did in the beginning, like just because I was trying to test out everything. Will I in the future? Probably. It's maybe one that I would cut. Looking at it like we talked about, 2 cost. I guess it was news to me that they all cost 2. I never realized that until Ryan mentioned that. But I mean, I just think there's other ways to get cards from your graveyard back into your deck with like Remembrance and stuff. And I think that for you to waste an attack, it doesn't really have that much of an effect, in my opinion. I don't know if you guys have any other takes on it, but I think it's not really too jazzy to me.
I know you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I've been also trending down on it. The more I play a little bit, I still do in Blitz. I don't think it's as good in Blitz. I could be wrong, but in CC, when you have more card slots, I still have some number, like either the yellow or the blue. I can't remember, but you don't really want to see it early in the game because it doesn't really do anything. You might potentially not even have too many good ones to choose from in your graveyard. So, the best application is if you can get back like a Phantasmaclasm or that kind of thing.
That's the dream scenario,
right? So, I think it's okay. This kind of card though is one to keep your eye on moving forward. Whenever they decide to pump some more cards in the card pool, but I'm kind of A on it, and it's not terrible, but it's just I think it's a lower floor type of card. But when you can get a Phantasmaclasm back with it, that's definitely pretty strong.
All right, we in Ryan land here. We're running the full suite, boys.
Oh
This
my
is
God. But
Oh,
Bob
wow.
calls it
Oh,
trash,
wow.
and Ryan's gonna rebuttal it. This is interesting. Let's hear it.
this card. I think I
Let's
play
hear
a
it.
much different style than Chris, as Jim kind of alluded to at the beginning. So my deck is kind of differently built. But this card is you don't want to see it early because it doesn't really do much. It is a 2 for 7 still, so it's still good. But if you can get a card like Tome of Divinity set up, and I do run tomes in my deck. If you can get that set up off of a Herald of Rebirth, this is like the best extender card in the game because you can choose which card to put back on the top. Then you guarantee draw with Tome of Divinity. So if you have something like Phantasmaclasm or Herald of Erudition, where you're just going to continue to draw cards, or you're going to just threaten huge damage, and you can guarantee that that's getting drawn off of your Tome of Divinity, then you are blowing people out of the water. So I think this card is a fantastic 9 of. In my opinion, not including Herald of Erudition, I think it's the second best Herald in the game.
Ooh, but so you're looking at it more so from a combo.
It's a combo. Yeah, it's a combo card. If you're playing like Chris's build where you're kind of trying to set up like major attacks with like Phantasmify and stuff like that, then it's not as good. If you're playing like the combo we set up with like draw and stuff, then I think it's insane. So it all depends on
At the end of the cast. I want
it all depends on what style.
I was just at the end. At the end of the cast, I want Ryan to give us the full like list of all the heralds, like best to worst, because he's
This one's
saying
the
like
second
this
best.
is the
I'll tell you the
second
first.
best. Herald
these are the hot
of Tenacity was the worst. I want to hear the full ranking.
I'll tell you my best. I think me and Chris and you could probably all agree on what the best herald is, not including Erudition because that's the majestic.
No spoilers yet. Spoilers.
Anybody else thoughts on the final thoughts or rebuttal to the Rebirth?
I think what Ryan said is just cool how we were mentioning just the different styles of play. You know, there's a ton of ways to build this deck, and obviously all of us are still trying to figure it out. So there is no 100%. It just answer right or wrong, or it just depends on how you're trying to build the deck and what you're trying to do. So
I like
contextually, the answer is more relevant that way.
And I think that's why we all love this game, right?
About it.
All right, so moving along after the Herald of Rebirth, this one's got an interesting name, and the artwork on it I find really cool, even from like I'm a non-Prism player. So, but when I pull this in packs, I'm always like, oh, it's kind of cool. The Herald of Ravages, 2 cost. I like the art, man. This like 4 wings and a sword on this chick.
Like the second best art on all the cards in the series, probably.
He's got the sword.
If Herald of Ravages hits, put it into your hero's soul and deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. Phantasm, the yellow attacks for 6, assuming then red is 7 and blue is 5. We'll go back to Chris here. Herald of Ravages, initial thoughts, and what colors you're running and why.
Initially, I wasn't too impressed with it, just because it's so vanilla, just, get an extra damage in. But the red one is an 8 damage card for 2.
Oh, so it goes up from 6 to 8?
Well,
no, you're saying with the arcane.
7 plus the arcane.
Yeah, sorry, 7 plus the 1 arcane. So, there is another card that's just a light card, or just an illusionist card, which is the Enigma Chimera, which is a 2-cost red, 8 power attack phantasm, but it does not go into the soul. So, if you're trying to play that super, super heavy aggressive style, especially in something like Blitz, if you can have 2 Herald of Ravages and 2 Enigma Chimeras, I mean, that's 4 cards in your deck that are basically 8 power attacks to go along with Phantasmaclasms and stuff. So I think it's just, again, it depends on the style. Like, some decks want it and some decks don't. So
Anybody else want to?
Yeah, I think this is a must. This is a must include. I think you need to have like the heavy hitters. Ryan's laughing. He's probably like, "Oh, I got none in my deck," and he's gonna hold. He's gonna hold up like none. I don't know. I think it's really good.
It's fine. I don't think it's a bad card. It's not tenacity bad. I have 2 yellows and 3 blues. Like Chris said, I think it's good. I just like with her, you can't run too many reds because you want that Luminaris build to go off. And this was just one of those reds that I was willing to sacrifice. But I think it's a fine card. I don't think it's bad by any stretch. I just prefer other things to it.
As someone who's played against it from time to time, I will say arcane damage at times can be a scary thing when it's not foreseen, and there's no one going to ever run arcane barrier or anything against Prism, right?
No.
Ever.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, to close out a game, you could force someone to overblock, just because maybe they could take, 1 damage, but they couldn't take 2, and now they for sure have to commit more cards out of their hand. So I agree. I think different facets of use, but I think it's pretty cool, and the art is awesome. So it gets the Jim stamp of approval.
Special guest host.
Oh, when the wife is in the screen, then hey, you can say hi. You don't have to be shy.
She ran away.
Just nerds, just boys being nerdy.
Yeah, she ran away. Sorry, guys.
All right, and so then moving along with the last common herald is the Herald of Protection. 2 cost. If Herald of Protection hits, put it into your hero's soul and create a Spectral Shield token. Phantasm, the yellow attacks for 6 and does defend for 3. So, I'll start with Ryan this time. Herald of Protection, what colors we playing? Are we playing it? Thoughts?
Best Herald. Like, I don't think it's, without question, I think it's best Herald. You run all 9 of these in CC, you run all 6 of them in Blitz. You're so efficient on hit. You're also, you got to look at it from her ability, right? So it costs 2 to banish a card from soul to create a Spectral Shield. So you're getting 4 resources worth of stuff on hit, right? You're getting the Spectral Shield, which we're putting at 2 cost, and you're getting a card in your soul as well. I think it's, Chris, do you have a differing opinion here?
No, 100% agree. Like you said, it's just the free value of that shield is so good. Like you said, 2 free money, can't beat that. So definitely the best common one by a significant margin, I would say.
Yeah.
Big Bobby, any agree?
I agree.
Hey.
I agree. It's a good card.
All 3 people on the same page. So I would say when I'm playing against you guys, this one is the one that I am most scared of, especially when I'm playing against when you guys choose to kind of go really wide and go with a lot of soul shields, and knowing that having to chew through them, me playing Leviah most of the time, can be hard. And so anytime you're getting a card in your soul and creating a soul shield, that's scary. Spectral, you know what I meant. Sorry. Soul shield is the defense reaction. My bad. All right. And then that's going to end it with the common heralds. We're moving on to her rare cards, and these I love the art on these 3 cards that I'm about to pull up one at a time. It's so interesting and so different than the art in this game that every time I look at it, I don't think I'm looking at a Flesh and Blood card. But that doesn't mean that it's not cool. And so these cards are auras, and as Ryan alluded to before, these auras most of the time don't go away at the end of a turn, or don't go away at the end of something. They can, but they need to be attacked or something like that, or most of the time there's a different clause. So the first one we're going to look at is Ode to Wrath. 4 costs, which that seems like a lot. Whenever a source you control deals damage to an opposing hero, they lose 1 additional health. Illusionist attack action cards you control have Go Again. Spectra, which I will read only this one time. Ode to Wrath can be attacked. When Ode to Wrath becomes the target of an attack, destroy it and close the combat chain. The attack does not resolve, which is an important clause because attacks that would have Go Again would not resolve. I will toss this to anybody. Who wants to jump in on the Ode to Wrath?
I'm going to defer to Ryan because I feel like Ryan has the most XP with the aura style of decks.
Yeah, I've gone away from it. Jim, you and I played a pretty solid Bravo deck where this was the MVP. I actually beat you, which was kind of against our expectations. But auras in general, this card is great, but it's kind of redundant with its second clause if you're playing Luminaris, because all of the heralds you're going to be playing have Go Again anyway. So really, this doesn't kind of fit that. And I just think for what it does, the additional health, Prism usually doesn't need the extra help there. maybe in matchups against Bravo or Levia. I think Rhinar is just an auto loss. We can get to matchups maybe at the end or maybe on on different games. But anyway, I just don't, for me personally, I know people love the auras because they're so fresh and they're so new and they're different. I have gone away from that style just because I feel the no block is such a setback. And the 4 costs, there's oftentimes I was sitting with like 2 auras in my hand and a guy's coming at me for like 6+ and I can't do anything about it. So Ode to Wrath is cool. It's not the best of the 3 rare auras. I think it might be probably the second best if we're ranking the 3 right now. But I just don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of XP with the auras. I think you play them if you have the Luminaris because they're yellow, they're pitch yellow, and I think that helps the cause too. So it has like a dual benefit. But yeah, it seems good in theory, but I think in with the reps, I don't know how it fares.
It's just very hard to get on the table, and the benefit's not that great. Like unless you have Vestige of Soul triggered or a third resource or a third tick on the tunic, like you're pitching 2 cards for this, and then what's it really doing? You can attack with it, but
yeah, but I mean, we'll talk about the next 2 rare auras in a second here, but generally speaking, I've also been going down on my thinking that the auras are good. Just with the way my current deck is built, like Ryan said, you really are never in a great position to play it at like a timely in a good situation. I know I just said that, but like I said, 4 cost, you're pitching 2 cards and then you're only going to have 1 card left in your hand afterwards. So it's just a really awkward thing with all the yellows if you're playing a heavy yellow build, which leads me to think that I think there's some sort of build where you don't really lean on the yellows and you're playing a ton of blues to where you can somehow pitch 2 blues to play an aura and also have 2 money left over to create a soul shield token. That's what they're called, right? No,
Spectral.
I know. I got everybody.
Spectral shield.
I got everybody saying the wrong thing. I'm sorry.
With Prism, so yeah, I've also been going down on them, but I think it's cool that they're not initially super great because it's a kind of a cool puzzle to try to crack.
They're better if you're playing an Iris of Reality build. Like if you're building around the Iris, I think they're better there. I just haven't really gone that route.
Yeah, funny you mentioned that because that's something I've been toying with the last couple nights. So we'll get to that later, but
yeah, we'll talk about. I do want to talk about the weapons or her 2 potential weapons at the end. So, Ode to Wrath, I will say, as a player who has played decks that block a lot, this would scare me that it's like the no block cards. Really, I hate them, and I used to not mind them, but the more reps I get in this game, the more I find situations like the 2 of you had brought up where someone's swinging for you at lethal, and if you can't block, then it's just the worst feeling in the world.
It has to be bananas to make up for that, and I don't think this card is, and I don't think the other 2 are either.
All right, so moving on from Ode to Wrath, we have Merciful Retribution. Another really interesting art card. He's got like a baby. He's like holding this savior-looking baby, and everybody wants to kill this baby for whatever reason in this card. It's a 4-cost aura. Whenever an aura or an attack action card you control is destroyed, deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. If it is a non-token light card, put it into your hero's soul. Has the Spectra keyword, no defense, cost 4, only comes in the color yellow. Who wants to jump in on Merciful Retribution?
I would think out of Ode to Wrath, Merciful Retribution, and Parable of Humility, I think this is probably the best one.
Yeah.
Because you can surprise some people, obviously, if they attack you and you just kind of let it go through or whatever the situation is, and you pop it down, and then, they take 4 damage because you blow up 4 of the spectral shields or whatever. I just think it's an interesting way to kind of push through some damage, like a Rhinar reckless swing style kind of like surprise out of nowhere to maybe get the last points in there. But again, it has to be like the perfect situation for this to actually work. I mean, granted, you can just kind of slam it down, but like we just mentioned, and Ryan said it too. The turns when you play the aura, you're just not really doing anything else besides playing the aura and like maybe blocking with the card or like pitching the card to try to attack. So I've just felt in general these 3 cards have just felt really awkward for me, but obviously I could be playing it wrong as well and building the deck incorrectly, but that's just my take.
I think in teching my deck right now to the tougher matchups like Levia, Bravo, and Reinar, I think this is the first card that I'm going to look for because it gives you an added security blanket against if they blow up your Phantasm cards. Because not only do you deal a damage and like kind of make them pay for it, but it goes in your soul, so you can then Prism instant and continue attacking or whatever, or just have that special shield potential there. So you're not really. I found a lot of turns against Jim and Blitz that we last played. There's a lot of turns where I'm like, hey, I'm going to play this Herald. And he's like, well, I'm defending with a 7. And then my turn's over. This allows you to at least have a banked up soul so you can kind of do something on your next turn, like create a pitch for a swing for 1. So, when I'm looking for those tougher matchups, this is one of those cards that are on my list to like sideboard and then potentially test in against those 6. But as it stands, I'm not in love with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, if you can, it's such a feel bad if your card gets blown up, and at least you're getting some kind of a benefit from it with this ode. But yeah, I have nothing. I mean, you guys hit on all the points.
So from the perspective of someone who's played against it, when I have to attack an aura, especially on a turn where I don't have go again, so I can't have attacked the character and then on my second action point attacked this aura card. Things like these put me into a monster pickle. I don't want to deal with the extra, arcane every turn, every time I pop one, because chances are, or anything, and this is any type of aura, right? So it's either the tokens or Phantasm, or
so the shield deals the damage, but it doesn't go into your soul, the special shield. But if you pop like a Herald, that goes into our soul and it deals damage.
Yeah, I remember playing against this, and there are turns with Levia, and if you're playing against like a Bravo or other characters who most of the time don't have go again, but I mean they do have ways of getting go again, but it's not their main mechanic, then these cards hurt real bad. You have to spend a turn not doing anything, which allows then the Prism player to have a full grip, potentially a full grip going into the next.
Yeah, attacking Genesis I feel is like a no-brainer for you, but like, do you want to attack this one?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, well, I've had a tendency to not attack these things, and then I don't like the result. So usually, if I do have a big attack, I'll spend the big attack on the character. With the go again, I'll try to get rid of an aura. So just from that perspective, this Merciful Retribution is a nuisance, and I don't like playing against it. All right, and then the final rare is the Parable of Humility. This is another interesting art card. It's like this female character is looking to this male character like, "What have you done?" And then he's like, "Oh my gosh, what have I done?" And then 6 people are pointing at you like, "Dude, you suck," or something. Who knows what's happening here? But 4 cost, Illusionist Aura, Light Illusionist Aura. Attack action cards controlled by an opposing hero have -1 power while attacking and defending. Spectra keyword. So, which one of you lot wants to talk about the Parable of Humility?
In my opinion, I'll go ahead, Bob. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, it's cool. Like we said as ad nauseum, like it's cool. It's awkward to pay for 4, but I guess this one kind of does help in the long run because especially with Levia having all of her 6 damage cards, you potentially shut off the Phantasm. So I mean, and then it also causes you to have to attack it. So it's in theory it's cool. I mean, I might try and tech this in, but again, like you're pretty much like wasting your turn just to put this out there for the long haul that could potentially be destroyed the next turn, which isn't the worst thing in the world.
I just think it does nothing against non Levia decks. So like it's hard to justify 3 deck spots for it because you're already winning those other matchups where this card does nothing. And I think I'd rather have Retribution against Levia, Bravo, and Rhinar anyway. So like a lot of times, like Jim, like I'm playing like another card that we're about to spoil, where I'm like, ha, he's got -1, and he's like, I'm gonna block with a 7, and then you're like, damn it, okay, cool. Like bolt and run 7s with Cataclysm and bolting, but like there's just not enough. It doesn't do enough. Like what does it turn off? Like some 6s and like Command and Conquer. Like all right, I can't justify spending 4 resources for this card. And three
I think it's one you tech it. Yeah, either you tech in or out based on the matchup, and like you said, maybe you just don't even tech it in at all.
Chris, any thoughts?
I agree. It does definitely feel bad when you get blocked by the 7 or 8 against Levia or Brute, Bravo, whatever it may be. So I'm with Ryan. I agree.
I can see. I'm glad they made this card, and I say that because in an ever-evolving game where you don't know where the meta is going to go, it could end up being right now. Like Ryan said, it does nothing in a lot of matchups, but there could be a day where big swingers, big swinging attack decks run the show, and then this would be an auto include, in that case. Or it seems like it's always a sideboard card, right?
Or if like Dorinthia, in order to manage her Prism matchup, starts running the generic 6s like Command and Conquer and Rally the Rearguard and all those cards. All those generics are 6 attacks. And so, like, if she starts running those, you slot a couple of these in, and then you're like, okay, now my Dorinthia matchup is back to leveled out because now she doesn't. There's no generic 7s.
Yeah, that's a great point. I never considered that.
Well, did we establish that Enlightened, if you give it 7,
Can't block.
or what?
It's blocking is a 5.
It would be like when you block with it, Bob. It's retaining its natural printed power is 5. Remember?
Okay, okay, all right.
You give it
JK.
or give it Ryan.
I thought we said if you did an attack reaction. No, I know. I thought we said like the attack reaction things.
That's just
counted
footsteps.
Towards the.
So like if you're blocking, you're blocking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
A Herald with Enlightened Strike, it doesn't blow it up.
Okay.
No, you're good.
Never mind.
All right, so Parable of Humility, interesting. Could be a card for the future. Could be a card you tech in. Moving on to, it looks like there's 2 more rares. Herald of Triumph, which comes in 3 colors. We're looking at the yellow right now. Cost 2. Attack action cards have -1 power while defending Herald of Triumph. If Herald of Triumph hits, put it into your Hero's Soul Phantasm. The yellow is a 6 and defends for 3. Chris, Herald of Triumph. Cool art, cool card, cool ability. Are we rocking it?
Definitely not main decking it, at least me, unless the entire meta is Levia or Bravo or something. But I just thought it's interesting that they put it at rare, and they put Herald of Protection at common, because I think those power levels should be swapped as far as rarity goes. But I'm assuming maybe my guess is maybe for like limited play reasons, like maybe for sealed deck or draft, they don't want a million of these floating around the table for some reason, which I can't really grasp for sure, but that's just my guess. But similar to Parable, same kind of deal. Like in your 80 cards, maybe you have a couple in your sideboard if you only play 60 cards or 70 cards. But no thanks.
Anybody else?
Yeah, that's interesting, man. I'm running all 9, but to go off of Chris's point, I think in my head when I saw this card, it was going to be like, oh, this card's sick, like crazy. It's going to make things so much harder. But then they just block with a 7 and it kills it. I like it as a 9 just because it takes away those generics. So like if you're against Dorinthia or Warrior, not necessarily Bolton, but if you're against like Dorinthia or Katsu, they're gonna have a hard time blocking this card and popping Phantasm. They can block it all naturally, but It's just one of those where I elected to go all 9. I'm not saying it's like the best by any stretch. I don't think it's top 3, but it's like this and Ravages. Like some people like Ravages as 9. I like this one as 9 just for the potential. I don't think it's as break-in or as broken as I initially thought it would be.
Well, by choosing to include 9 in your main, it obviously gives you a little bit of that much more bump when you do face up against Leviah, because you already have those cards in your deck anyway. So kind of giving you a little bit of edge in that terrible situation. Which
I feel like every time I've played this against Jim, he's like, "Oh, I just drew the 7. Uh-oh."
8, yeah.
Every time. Like literally every time. He's like, "Oh, my bad. I got the 7."
Oh my gosh, this red hungering slaughter beast, it does 7.
Oh, my bad, dude. I just got lucky again.
Yeah, baby. I will say this is one of the more annoying ones that I don't like to play against. And even though I get lucky, this is a great card against my Leviah. And so, like, I think there's 2 ways to look at this. Just like Chris had said about, is this a card you sideboard in if the meta is strong? Or you can look at it the Ryan way of, if I run this, I know for a fact these people that run these generic 6s are dead in the water against this. So, interesting way to look at it. I think both are correct, and it could be utilized in a different way. And then I do want to piggyback on what Chris said about the protection compared to this Triumph. And I want to say that I feel like, at least from my initial thoughts, I'll make this very quick. It seems like they gave all 4 of these new heroes an outstanding common card.
It was intentional.
Yeah, right? Like the Herald of Protection, Take Flight is insane for Bolton, Dread Screamer for Leviah, and then Seeds of Agony for Chain. It seems like there's a common that's a big ringer.
It's intentional, I think, and it's a genius design.
Yeah, I think that's awesome as well. Bob, any final thoughts on the Herald of Triumph?
No, I think I've just played enough against you to know that I hate getting the attacks blown up, and so whatever I can do to prevent that from happening, and whether that's just me playing against Levia so much to just be frustrated with it. Yeah, I think we talked about it.
All right, cool. All right, and so then Herald of Judgment, rare, comes in only yellow. Interesting. She's judging you. She's got the balancing thing. I don't know what that's called, but
Scales.
What is it called?
Scales.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if this
like a balancing scale.
Yeah, I didn't know if it had like a cool name, scientific name, but she's judging you. The Herald of Judgment, Prism specialization. So you may only have Herald of Judgment in your deck if your hero is Prism. If Herald of Judgment hits, put it into your hero's soul, and the defending heroes can't play cards from their banish zone until the end of their next turn. Ooh, that smells like a chain tech. So
it's mandatory, yeah.
So this is a 6 attack. It does defend. I'll kick it over to one of my 3 teammates here to talk about the Herald of Judgment.
Go ahead, Ryan. Finish what you were.
Yeah, I think it's good against Chain. I think it's good against Chain and like probably Levia, but outside of them, I mean, no one else is playing out of the banish zone. So, I mean, it's you tech it in for those 2 matchups at least. If you want to maybe put it in for just like more 6 attack power, cool. I mean, it's a yellow pitch, but otherwise, it's a
side deck
for those matchups.
Like staple. You have to run 3 of them in your side deck because it can single-handedly just win you the game against Chain. If you can prevent him probably twice from playing cards out of his banish zone, like turn 3, turn 4, you win the game. Like it's not even without question, you win the game. Mm-hmm. Because not only is he just now building up blood debt, he's taking the damage, and now he's just got this gigantic pile that he can't deal with. So
the chain
you put
player, the Chain player always fully blocks this out, right?
Yeah, but if you have like a pummel, like if you set this up and put a pummel here and like they don't overblock it, you win the game. It's game over. And if they do fully block and they have a D-react in their hand or something, now they only have 1 card and they still have 5 shackles. Like I think you confidently put 3 in your side deck. You wait until I don't even know if you run it against Leviah. I don't think you do. Yeah, you just sit there and wait for Chain and then say, LOL.
Yeah,
Sorry,
the only
bro.
time, like you said, the only time it's really good against Jim or Levi is like on that turn if he's gonna somehow get a deeper to evil on like a go again or something. That's only one card.
Yeah.
And that's like,
So,
yeah,
You
whatever.
know, it's definitely there for Chain because Chain is so strong. And yeah, like you said, if you can get it, like you said, it's kind of a win-win. Like they're gonna catch 22. They let it hit and take the blood debt, or did they use their whole hand and block, and then they do nothing anyway. So I totally agree.
I think it is like you guys said, some chain tech, and it's cool that they made like Prism the anti-chain. I like it.
Light versus the dark, you know,
Yeah,
Hey.
gotta have it. All right,
or
now,
shadow. Sorry.
getting into the big M dogs, the Majestics, the three sexies of her light illusionist class, starting with this card Genesis, where we have two spectral looking beings made of half clouds, half humans, touching tips of fingers, dancing. Who knows? But you just look at it and you know something's going on here. So 4 cost. At the start of your turn, you may put a card from your hand into your hero's soul. If it is an illusionist card, create a spectral shield token. If it is a light card, draw a card. Has the Spectra keyword, is an aura. Now, before I even turn it over to them, this card is the gas. So I will bounce it over to, let's go, Chris, Ryan, Bob. Give me the Genesis.
As you mentioned, Jim, it is the gas. This card is insane. It's so good. It's also really fun to play with. But something that is a little awkward sometimes is if your deck does not have a super high density of the light illusionist cards themselves that are both clauses, you're going to have to really be cognizant of how you're blocking to think about which card you're going to have left over to put back into your soul. Do you want to either make a token if you have only like an illusionist card, or draw a card if it's light, or if you have a generic, you're not doing anything. So just kind of something to keep in mind. But obviously a great card, to say the least. The best aura by about, well, I guess Arklight is a different conversation, but as far as the 4-costers, by a mile, it's definitely the best one.
It's the best card in the deck, in my opinion. This is like my baby. I love Genesis. I pulled one during pre-release, and I had one in my deck. And every time I got this on the table, people didn't know how to react, granted, because it was a new card. But this thing is the truth. If you play Vestige of Soul, it is an automatic Vestige of Soul. Just it automatically turns that on for the turn. You're doing multiple things, like just it's so good. My favorite play in this game right now is opening with this on your first turn. If you're going second and you open with this, they attack you, you put Genesis down and refill your hand, and then just get to keep going. Oh man, I hope you all get the opportunity to try that and play that line, because it is just gives you tingles down in the nether regions.
Well, I've never had those tingles down the nether regions after playing that combo, but it sounds
recommend
pretty
it.
cool.
Yeah.
Bob, did you pull any of these?
I have one. I don't have the Vestige of Soul, so you know it might be a while till I get
Even
those
without
tingles,
Vestige,
but maybe
like you
one
don't
day.
have.
It's a really good card. Yeah, no, I've played it. The one that I have, I still play it, but I'm hoping that's definitely one that I'm gonna get to more of soon.
Truth.
Right. So the squad agrees Genesis is the gas. And again, look at that artwork. Who knows what's happening? Do they love each other? Who knows? All right, moving along. This card we have some interesting conversation about, because we may have played it wrong in the beginning, and now we think we've got it figured out. It's the Arklight Sentinel. A 6-cost, my goose. And Prism specialization, so this can only be played in a Prism deck. If Arklight Sentinel is in the arena when an opponent announces an attack, they must choose Arklight Sentinel as the target of the attack. Spectra. The keyword on the bottom there is instant. So, I'm going to turn this over to Ryan, because he recently taught us, the rulings on this card. Because it is an instant, and because there are specific windows to respond to, this card can be used in a specific way. Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you. tell us about the Arklight Sentinel play and what is it?
So, initially we thought that, hey, if somebody plays like a Command and Conquer and says, okay, I can respond because it's an instant and say, well, hang on, in response to you playing my card, I'm going to play this card. And now your attack has to go towards Arklight. And that's not true. So if you play Arklight in response to somebody attacking you, they have already determined the target is your hero. So playing Arklight might be a waste. You might want to save up your blocks and not play it there because they're still going to be attacking you. However, if they play a non-attack action, say Sharpened Steel, let's say you're playing against a warrior and they play Sharpened Steel, and they're setting up for a big attack, you can respond to that Sharpened Steel and then play Arklight Sentinel on the table, and then their next attack has to target the Arklight. So basically, all that fancy stuff that they did before the attack is wasted because they have to attack this guy. And the cool part about him is even if they have go again, it just gets destroyed. They don't get go again. So my opinions about this card, it's interesting. It's probably the most interesting card in the game today, at least one of them, because it is expensive, yet it's your get out of jail free, right? If you're against a Brute or Dorinthia or somebody and they're setting up a massive turn, this thing can shut down Dorinthia immediately. If she's got a token or two and you're worried about her like kind of going off, you play this thing down, that Dawnblade's reset immediately and you're not taking any damage, right? Because it has to be directed. Now Dawnblade didn't hit, you're good. So interesting card. I currently am sideboarding 2, and then I'm running it in matchups like against Brute, against Dorinthia, against Bolton, but against like Ninja, I probably don't run it. You don't want to run it against like paper cut decks where they can just kind of Kadachi and they don't really care if they, waste that attack. You want to build this up against the guys that are playing or swinging for, major damage. So I do like this card. I'm pretty high on it, but 3 is a bit too much. I think it gets a little bit cloggy. But yeah, I do like it. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. The 6 is definitely very prohibitive. It's prohibitive, especially depending on how you build your deck. If you have not a ton of blues, it's obviously going to take you 3 cards to pay for it. So, I think the reason it costs 6 is I think it's kind of them giving a little hint as to like maybe. And kind of going off the Iris of Reality also costing, or not, the Iris costing $3 to use it, the auras to attack. I feel like both of those are little winks that there is a world where you want to have a lot of blues in a Prism deck and maybe don't go so heavy on the yellows. And that's kind of something to keep in mind as we kind of keep evolving the builds and figure out the optimal way to play.
That's a good point.
Styles.
I like that take.
Final thoughts, Robert?
No, I agree with everything that was said. I feel bad. I'm just like agreeing, but I mean they're both pretty extensive in their analysis of it. So, yeah, no comment.
Well, I'm just agreeing as well, so don't feel bad. All right, and then finally, the Herald of Erudition. If anybody out there, I have a rainbow foil one of these. I'm looking to trade it for any cool rainbow foils out there, including.
I'm looking to trade for a rainbow foil one of these, so I am anyone out there.
Don't you have a rainbow foil tree?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe we'll get something done.
All right, I'll have my people contact your people.
Deals being done on the cast.
All right, so the Herald of Erudition.
Dreams do come true.
2 cost, big majestic, only 5 attack. Dominate though. If Herald of Erudition hits, put it into your hero's soul and draw 2 cards. Phantasm, and the artwork is really cool, sitting on like a tree, spawning a Kamehameha looking orb, getting ready to go. So, let's go reverse order this time. Let's go Bob, Ryan, Chris. Bob, Herald of Erudition, gut reactions. Have you played with it? Do you have any?
So I put it in, initially because it's a majestic, and it's like, well, I want to show off my sauce. So I put it in there. It's a cool card. Obviously, we've already talked about dominate on a Phantasm card. It kind of like is washed away sometimes. But yeah, I think, if you're playing against like a little deck that's got like, not those big attacks, like a non-Levia deck, sure, it's good. I mean, there's not many cards that can block 5 damage with one card unless you have like a big time D reaction, like a Soul Shield or maybe like a Staunch or something like that. But then usually those cost, so you're getting something out of their hand as well to pay for it. I think the effect is worth it. I don't think your opponent's going to let you get it off.
This card's bananas.
I was gonna say draw 2 is nuts. Is there any way?
It's really good. I just don't think that your opponent's they're going to do everything in their power to prevent you.
So this card takes setup. I think this is a Dreamweaver's target for sure, because if you can get this going, again, Luminaris build, if you're pitching yellow and you're playing this card and you draw 2, it just refreshes your hand and you're just going and going and going and going. You got full gas. So if you can pummel this after Dreamweavers and then draw 2 and then refresh and you're playing more, this card is busted. Initially, when I saw this for 2 for 5, I'm like, how is that a Majestic? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then I played with it and not much more to say. This is potentially, besides Genesis, the best card in the deck.
I think something I've learned from playing this card, when you have it early, just pitch it. Because
get rid of it.
If you play it early, they're just going to put their equipment out in front of it and block it, and you just waste it. But later in the game, when they've used all their armor up, and that's when this is, like Ryan said, that's when you can really do some crazy stuff with it, because they can't block 5 with one card unless they have like 1 or 2 cards that are possibly going to be useful in that situation. So there was one time when I was kind of just messing around, and like if you can somehow get both of them early and pitch them in a sequence to where you can possibly rip the second one on the go, yeah, that's when stuff's really going on.
I didn't even think about that. And so then we'll talk about the Luminaris here in a minute, because we're going to be done with all of her cards. Luminaris would give this go again, correct?
Oh yeah. And this is also like why I played 9 Rebirths too, because if you're forced to block, it doesn't hurt to put this one back on top, because it's just crazy bananas.
That's totally true. Yeah, like I said, when I was first playing and I didn't really know what I was doing, I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna jam this out here right away, and then like an idiot, and they're like, okay, I'll block 3, and here's my 2 boots and whatever.
Yeah.
And your turn's over.
You have to set it up for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that leads us right into the wand.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. So
Scepter.
We're gonna look at the Luminaris.
Two-handed.
Yeah, two-handed. So she's
a heavy daddy.
Weaving. She's not weaving it with one. She's like, you got to picture her like when the guy's at like the NASCAR race and he's got the oversized flag and he's just ripping it with 2 hands, just letting it go. Yeah,
just out there giving everything go again, just like go again.
Oh gosh! All right, so this is a Majestic. During your action phase, illusionist auras you control are weapons with 1 damage and once per turn action, 0 cost attack. The bottom clause: while there is a card with a yellow color strip in your pitch zone, illusionist attacks you control have go again. Now, before I turn this over, compared to the other Majestic weapons that the heroes got, not counting Bolton, but because Bolton's is really good, this one
you can include Bolton in this in what you're about to say.
This one is bonkers. I feel like it's a major upgrade from the illusionist weapon of the Iris of Reality, right? Different styles, but geez, this one just kind of gives you a lot more flexibility. Chris, you were dove into the Luminaris pretty heavily off the get-go. Give me your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so just the way that our local store has been running events, we've been playing more Blitz more frequently since release for our official events. So, in Blitz, I've been trying to go for the full just gas pedal type strategy. And in that build, when you're not playing against a deck that has a Levia 6 power defense, I mean, this card is completely insane because you just have 2 insanely huge heralds back to back almost every turn. for the most part. I mean, that's a lot of when there's only 20 health and you're playing against decks that can't pull up the Phantasm. It's completely insane. You can just run people over. But you know, it's also that you can also obviously with the first part where the illusionist auras are weapons for once per turn 0 attack. That's great too. I mean, in my blitz deck, I'm not making a ton of shields, but obviously an extra damage for free, you can't go wrong there. But yeah, Ryan, what do you think about it?
In terms of weapons in the game, you rank like Dawnblade, you rank Anathos, you rank Kadachi's on their own. I honestly think this is on a Mount Rushmore of flesh and blood weapons right now. Like out of the gate, 3 weeks in, I'm confident in saying this is a top 4 weapon in the game. I'm not saying Iris is bad because there's an Iris build and I'm sure it's going to be good. You know, we've got some events coming up that we'll be able to kind of get some more data, extrapolate some more data. But I just think this it's insane. It's insane. If it was just auras you control attack for 1 and gain go again, it would be good because then you could build a shield deck and an aura deck and still be able to attack with them while doing other things with the heralds. But the fact that now you have every illusionist go again,
it's absurd. Yeah,
it's absurd. It's absurd. It's a great card. It's fantastic to play with. I would hate playing against it. But
it's nuts. Yeah,
Bob,
just
do you own
like you
one?
said, giving the first time I read it,
Don't.
I'm sure everyone maybe glanced over it, but like you said, it's not just the auras have go again; it's everything.
every illusionist attack.
Yeah. So
I had to play against Jim, and this is probably the craziest play. I don't know how many times it happens, but I broke Dreamweavers. I had a yellow pitch. I broke Dreamweavers, played a Phantasmify, played a Command and Conquer that was attacking for 11, and it had go again because of his illusionist attack. So it was an 11 cost, go again, Command and Conquer. I could not be blown up with Phantasm because I used my Dreamweavers.
Dreamweavers, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
sick.
and again, in a format like Blitz, I mean, that's completely insane.
But like, think about that though. Yeah. That's a play that is now available readily because of this card.
It's going to happen It's going to happen more often than you think, especially with something like Wartune Herald that only costs $1.
Yep.
When you have the Phantasmify in your hand and you have the Wartune Herald and you pitch a yellow, I mean, that's 11, 12 power go again, essentially. I mean, granted, you got to have one of those cards in the arsenal to have extra cards to follow up, but you know, that's not that professional.
Phantasmify in your arsenal sounds good to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy, man.
Double hand in the wand.
Of the Phantasmify, let's transition quickly to the general illusionist cards. You guys call one out to me, and I'll pull it up. And then after these general illusionist cards, we can just talk general light cards, since they are key components in building her. Before we go over, the footsteps or the iris, and we can just talk quickly about those stuffs because I do want to, end this relatively soon. Ryan, give me one card that you want to talk about that's illusionist.
You start with Phantasmaclasm.
All right, let me pull that up.
That's the most efficiently costed card in the game. 3 for 9. It does some hand peeking stuff. You can go ahead and read the text there.
Yeah, so just pulled it up really quickly. 3 for 9 and blocks for 3, so that's great. Red card. Look at the defending hero's hand and choose a card. They put it on the bottom of their deck, then draw a card. Phantasm, but geez, 9, and then the amount of times that you guys have boosted this by 5 and then broken the gloves against me is a lot. It seems to be like the play that everybody goes for is the big dogger, where you buff it by 5, you pop the Dreamweavers, and then you're attacking for a lot. So does anybody need to say anything about this card that this card's text doesn't already say about itself?
No, I don't think so. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Busted.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Okay. Chris, any other? Or should I pull up Phantasmify then as well?
I was going to talk about Prismatic Shield. I think Phantasmify is pretty self-explanatory as well. But as I mentioned before, the Iris of Reality, Phantasmaclasm, Prismatic Shield, and Arklight Sentinel. These are all cards that cost either 3 or 6, some sort of multiple of 3. I haven't toyed around with this much, but I'm trying to draft up a build. I'm convinced that this is now double, triple, quadruple wink from Legend Story Studios that there is a blue build of an Iris Reality blue build somewhere where you're focusing on 3-cost pitches. Because, again, similar to the auras, Prismatic Shield is good. It's really good, but you're pitching 2 yellows to pay for it, so it's just a little awkward in that yellow build. You're missing a resource. Maybe you're going to block with the footsteps to use that extra money, or maybe you have an arcane barrier or something. But it's just you're losing a little bit of value there, and the synergy is not quite perfect with the Luminaris. So, just something that I'm really going to try to, as I mentioned before, try to work on moving forward. The Iris of Reality kind of blue pitch.
You gotta love that this is an instant, though, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because even on, I believe you do this play against me all the time. Is you'll do this at the end of my turn. And then on your turn, you're just pitch a yellow to make another one, and then attack.
Yep.
So it is the instant keyword here. I forgot about this prismatic shield, and yeah, I think it's really good.
Yeah.
Bob, any other one you want me to? The Enigma Chimera? You like any of those?
I'll just say Enigma Chimera is the best art in this out of her class.
We got like some massive
number one art, I think.
With some guy who's on
it's freaking a chimera, man. It's
I just noticed
about to get eaten by this chimera.
If you don't think it's real, try
If you don't think it's real.
Yeah.
That's
what they say,
That's usually Jim's lead-in line.
Do they say that?
That's how I get them, All right, so let's bounce over. I'll go Ryan first. Ryan, do you want me to pull up any specific light card that pairs well with Prism?
Yeah, Tome of Divinity. I think this card is very niche. When I first saw it, I hated it. And now that I'm starting to play Vestige of Soul, I get its utility. It's an ultimate extender. It's beautiful. It's beautiful art. But it's great at just refilling your hand and keeping that gigantic chain going. A lot of times I've noticed against like Chain, it's kind of ironic, such a Chain or like Dorinthia, where they don't have those Phantasm Buster cards, that they'll block that first Herald, even though you have Go Again. They'll be like, okay, I'm going to block 6 here. If you can play this card and then just like bamboozle them, they might take, honestly, 18 damage that they're not expecting because they think your turn's going to be, all right, if I block this 6, I'm probably going to be threatened for 6 more, and then I can take 6. Then you refill 3 cards, and I mean, if you pull a Herald of Erudition there, and now you're drawing 2 more cards, bananas. So, party don't stop. So yeah, Tome of Divinity, fantastic.
No block though, instant. How many do you run?
I sideboard all 3. I'm never playing it against, if I'm not running Vestige, so against Levia, Bravo, Rhinar, I'm not playing that card. So if I side out Vestige, I side that card out with it. I'll play it against Chain. I'll play it against Dorinthia. I'll play it against, even though it doesn't block, the potential just bananas turn against Dorinthia might overwhelm her, and that is probably good enough to give you the win.
Okay. Chris, any light cards you want to shout out that you've paired well with Prism?
Well, one that I haven't given a whole lot of play until recently, which is Glisten.
Okay.
The old put the counters on the aura/weapon, since the weapon, the Iris and the Luminaris make the aura's weapons during your action phase. So, kind of going back to the Iris of Reality build, something I want to try is stacking a ton of tokens on one shield and then trying to protect that one shield. Because, the go wide shield thing is cool and you can maybe get 2, 3, 4, but like realistically, I haven't really gotten more than like maybe 5, maybe 4, and that's with the prismatic shield. I'm obviously possibly doing something wrong as far as the build and sequencing, but it's hard to protect 5 auras every turn. And the only way you're really going to refill that is with a prismatic shield. You can't really afford to, like, you know, not block an entire turn, and then you're possibly not going to have cards in your soul to get more tokens out by just using Prism, because it's only once per turn anyway. So, you know, I'm trying to figure out if maybe just one token, using the Iris, using a lot of blues, stack some counters on it with Glisten, and since the Iris of Reality then has a 4 power base attack instead of a 1, you're maybe looking at having a consistent 3 power, 8 to 10 damage attack. But, you know, again, that's kind of all in on one sort of thing. But I think it might be easier to protect one shield than it is to protect a field of 4 or 5 or 6. So, but
cool.
It's a really cool card. And it's nice that they included that little parentheses helper text at the bottom, because that's something that I glossed over on my first read.
Well, I'll read that. If a permanent is no longer a weapon during your end phase, +1 counters on it are not removed. And so the reason why Chris brings that up is because the auras are weapons during your
Action phase only.
action phase. So that doesn't pertain to when he puts these counters on a shield, as he said. Right? They don't ever come off. So a Glisten kind of gets around that, where it's a workaround to keep these Glisten tokens, these +1 counters, on your shields, correct?
Yep, that's correct. Yep. Because at the beginning of your end phase, when it says to remove the counters, the auras are no longer weapons, because they're only weapons during the action phase.
That's awesome. All right, Bob, got any light cards you want to touch base on?
Yeah, I was kind of like looking over the cards just now, and you know, something that I mean, obviously the Majestics are obvious picks, but a kind of a deep cut that I'm thinking I might want to mention. And again, call me paranoid, call me defensive, but I hate when the attacks get blown up. And initially I thought that Blinding Beam was kind of a trash card. I'm kind of starting to like open up to it, because I mean, the red one is a 1 cost, and if you're playing a shadow character, it's free, and you just decrease the attack of the defending card by 3. I mean, that shuts down pretty much, I mean, with the exception of like the really big bangers of like, what's the like high velocity is like 10. What are some other, like, I mean, the Phantasmaclasm. Well, it doesn't matter because it's Crippling Crush. I'm just trying to think of the big bangers, but like that shuts down anything. And so like if you were in a pinch and you really needed to get that attack off, or you really needed an effect to go through, I mean, you could just jam this on the table and you're safe. So I don't know. It's something I'm thinking about maybe slotting in just to see how it works out.
I think Soul Shield and Cataclysm are honorable mentions. I think they're pretty much light staples. We don't have to talk about them, but it's
I didn't even want to mention
worth mentioning here.
But I will say, to your point of Blinding Beam is it's a fun card to play when you can get it off, like, because they're just like, aha, I got you. No, you don't. So it's fun.
And then you're like, aha, I got you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a super fun card when you get it to work. But you know, most of the time it's a pitch. But when it's good in the right matchup, it's just like super fun and satisfying to get them, because they always get you 90% of the time. So let's get them back.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't block for anything, so that's kind of a buzzkill, but
yeah,
it's an instant, so you get it. You take it.
The aha moment is a pain, especially when you guys played against me. I want to wrap this up by going Dreamweavers, Footsteps, Iris of Reality, and then a quick mention of the Vestige of Soul. Let's talk about the Dreamweavers very quickly here. They are the Illusionist equipment arms that came with this set. As an action, destroy the Dreamweavers. The next Illusionist attack action card you play this turn loses and can't gain Phantasm. Go again. It also has the Spell Void clause. It does not block for anything though. Do you guys find yourselves, no matter what type of build you are playing, running Dreamweavers? If the answer is no, give me the other set of arms you'd recommend.
I don't play it in every matchup, and in Blitz, when I don't play the Dreamweavers, I play the Goliath Gauntlet instead, just to put that extra damage through. As far as CC, I can't say top of my head. I think I have... no, I have it in Constructed as well. So Either I'm playing the Weavers or I'm playing the Gauntlet. Those are my two gloves of choice at the moment.
I'm probably playing Weavers like 90% of the time. Goliath Gauntlet was from Mena. I played it only in the mirror. I'll play Dreamweavers pretty much in any matchup other than the mirror.
Same. All right, cool. So Dreamweavers confirmed good. And then
Definitely very good.
definitely very
Oh,
good.
yeah.
And then finally we got those toes, baby. The Phantasmal Footsteps. If you are lucky enough to get your hands on one of these, because it is a legendary. Look at those feet walking down the stairway to heaven.
Staring at them. Oh
gosh. She's got those straps all the way up to the knee. Just do it to him, kid. God.
Oof.
All right. First time an illusionist attack action card you control is destroyed each turn, you may pay $1. If you do, gain 1 action point. Whenever you defend with the Phantasmal Footsteps, you may pay $1. If you do, its defense becomes 1 until end of turn. If Phantasmal Footsteps defends a non-illusionist attack with 6 or more power, destroy it when the combat chain closes. My question is this. If I'm a lucky player that gets one of these, or I'm going to shell out the dough to get one of these, how imperative is that? If not, and I'm getting into the game and I'm trying to budget this out, give me a recommendation to run as my legs that is not Phantasmal. So talk about the upside and then give a recommendation. Ryan.
If you're playing competitively, you cannot play Prism reliably without these footsteps, unfortunately. As right now they are expensive. Unlimited's going to cheapen that. But I don't think you can play competitively reliably enough without these things. You have to have them. If you're playing casually or you're just getting into the game, I think there are kind of a wide variety of things. I think the Ironhide legs are a great alternative because they block for 2. If you pitch a blue and you block for 2, then you can, make a spectral shield with Prism. So there's some synergy there. Iron Rots, the other generic that block for 1, there really aren't a whole lot of great legs. Chris could probably attest to it more. I know he kind of experiments with different equipment more than I do, but if you're trying to play competitively, if you're going to be playing in some events and you want to play Prism and you want to do well, got to have them. There's no other alternative. You have to have them.
I would totally agree. But for newer players, you just want to get some reps in and you don't have, not willing to shell out a ton of money right now for the footsteps. It is kind of cool with Prism. When you do choose to play 2 Ironhide pieces of equipment, the ones where you pay $1 to give them +2. So, with Prism having a high number of yellows or potentially blues, whatever it may be, mostly yellows, you can kind of get some good value, especially on the instance. If you're playing the auras that can't block, you can defend with 2 of the hides and pay 2 resources and get 4 block there and not trigger reprise, stuff like that. So, for me, even though people are starting to play more generic 6s, like just because of the presence of Prism, something to consider is something like an Ironhide against, say, Warrior, where, the Ironhides do allow you to get some blocking out there, like I just mentioned, without triggering reprise from your hand. So it's just kind of either you maybe have a super concrete idea of what the list is going to look like if your opponent you think is going to have some Command and Conquerors or the like in your deck. But if maybe you think they don't have it, I would almost say don't play it in those certain matchups. But that's just me.
Okay. Bob, do you have a pair of these yet?
No, I don't.
So
yeah, no, I agree with what they said. If I had them, I would definitely play it. So
okay.
He has a real
playing
physical player in
Ironhides.
real life.
He does. I saw Bob one time show up to a store championship when we used to play Destiny wearing a pair of Phantasmal Footsteps. Kid was sexy.
I mean, and you saw me walking in on the stairway to heaven too.
You see a lot of. You actually saw a lot of toes when you go to the store championship. And
You do.
Not the kind you want to see. All right, moving along.
Not my toes.
last 2 things I want to touch base about. If you did not get the super cool, big, huge 2-handed wand, then you are most likely using the Iris of Reality. During your action phase, illusionist auras you control are weapons with 4 damage, and once per turn action, 3 cost attack, go again. Have I know you guys each got a Luminaris, and we talked about how it's on the Mount Rushmore of weapons already, potentially. Is the Iris of Reality good enough to see play in its own right?
I don't know. I just think I think first, before we talk about just your question, it's interesting that similar to like Ranger, Illusionist, Prism, they don't really have a weapon. It's a weaponless class essentially, unless you meet some sort of condition of making an aura. That they kind of make up for that by having these insanely huge phantasm attacks where you don't even need to use the weapon sometimes. But I've said this a couple times already. I do think there's some sort of blue build with the Iris somewhere out there. So yeah, I think it's definitely got some potential, but just gotta crack the bauble, so to speak, and get in there and figure it out.
Whoa.
How about that, huh?
Solid reference.
If the New Zealanders, if there was a tournament on Sunday, which there is, and someone were to tell me there is going to be an Iris of Reality build that wins or places top 2 or top 4 in that tournament, I would not be surprised. I think in terms of a major tournament, the Iris could potentially be better than Luminaris. I know I just said crazy stuff about Luminaris, but I think there's a control build that exists that is not explored yet. Not an aggro build, but a control build with the Iris that is right now untested, undiscovered, that I think could be crazy.
So, just to ask a question then. If you are using this 3-cost attack, it's turning one of your auras to a 4 damage, and then it has
auto,
to go.
Auto go again, yeah.
Has the auto go again. Is that 3 cost, though, like Chris mentioned, too hefty in a deck that is running mainly yellows?
Well, no, you would have to change the build completely. So you're running all blues. Then Prismatic Shield Red becomes a lot more playable because it's only just 1 card and it's an instant, and you're creating 3 shields. And then if you build a deck like Bravo style, where you're building, 40 blues, you're going to be able to get 3-4 cost attacks with Go Again that can't be blown up with Phantasm every turn.
Well, they don't all get Go Again, right?
Yeah, they do.
So
Iris gives it's a 3-cost attack.
Control our weapons of 4 and once per turn action. But you would have to pay 3 every time, right?
Yeah, 4 go again, pitch another blue. 4 go again, pitch another blue. 4 go again. But if you build it Bravo style, that's good.
So Ryan, like you were saying, that was kind of what I was mentioning before. Like,
if you glisten,
I'm trying to toy with that idea of glistening 1 token. You have a lot of blues. You can play unmovables. You can play what was the other
Soul
card?
Shields and
Yeah, exactly, Soul Shield. So just like you said, go heavy defense. The blues are now matching up with your Prismatic Shields. They're matching up with your Arklight Sentinels. They're matching up with your Iris of Reality, your Phantasmaclasms, etc. So,
I want to see it. I want to see this.
I don't think that's a Blitz deck. I think it's a CC deck.
I 100% agree. I don't think the slower strategies are at all viable in these, at least the first couple times I tried, because you just get run over and it's over with. You have to either try to beat the best defense in Blitz is a better offense. I think most people know that by now anyway. But in like you just said, in Blitz you just want to go heavy on the Heralds and just slam them and kill them. And then there's a lot of play in CC though. So
I think it's out there. I want to see it, man. I do. I think it's out there.
Make it.
In preparation for this cast, I was kind of looking over some potential Prism decks, and I did come across a total control deck where they basically had I don't even know, they had 20 D reacts, and they just played all these all the big bangers like Soul Shield, Sink Below, Fate 14, all the pretty much every D react you can think of. And it was man, I'm what are they really going for? But then I think their whole build is to either for the long game and then also for this for the Iris. So we'll see.
All right, well, I'm leaving it up to you guys to crack that code, because if there is a 3 group of men who could get together and put their brains and solve
It's not
the
us.
cards. It could be though, but it could be.
Different team, yeah.
But it could be. All right, and then last but not least, another card that Ryan somehow went from 0 to 2 of within a matter of days.
Oh no.
The Vestige of Soul is a light equipment chest, 1 defense. If a card has been put into your hero's soul this turn, whenever you pitch a light card, instead gain that many resources +1. But Rye, you recently said they reworded this.
You have it correct.
Okay.
So yeah, you have it the right
Is
way.
the text on the card different than the?
Yeah, I got it and gotten errata to make a little bit more sense.
Oh, okay. So what does yours say?
Whenever you pitch a light card, if a card has been put into your hero's soul this turn, gain a resource.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So the
Yeah,
errata,
that updated sequence of text is definitely easier to.
it's way easier.
Yeah.
So it's a passive. It goes the whole turn. You get 1 resource every time you pitch a light card after you've already sold a card. And yeah, I'm just testing it because, if you're against a non-threat like the Mirror or Dorinthia or Bolton or Chain, where you don't really have to worry about the 6s, why not run this card and go for bananas combos? Like, you can just endlessly string together things. A 3 becomes a 4, a yellow becomes a blue. Like, it's insane what you can do with this card. If you have I've been doing it, like if a Herald hits, you soul it, you have go again because you pitched a yellow. Now, anytime you pitch another card, you get to bank an extra resource. But if you have Genesis, and your initial yellow already banks you an additional resource, and you have go again regardless. So you're just banking these additional resources, and that's where cards like Tome of Divinity come into play that just lead to these just absolutely undefendable turns. It gets out of hand. So yeah, not sold on it yet. I haven't played enough. I haven't gotten enough reps yet, but love the idea of it, and I'm going to continue playing it going forward.
Awesome. All right, so here's what I'm going to do to wrap this up. On the screen, what the people watching the video can see are me just kind of showing some of the lists that you guys have been trying out. I know you guys sent me, and I'm just scrolling through them kind of slowly, so anybody can pause and take a look.
We'll post the links in the description.
We could always link it as well, publish it and then link it as well. But I will say this as we kind of wrap it up here. We, again, do not know the best way to play Prism. We are only exploring and experimenting and learning as we go. We are a team that has a lot of fun experimenting and learning as we go. If you have recommendations, or you think maybe, wow, they're really sleeping on a card, and I think this is a really important card, and this is why I see the value of this card, leave it in the comments. If you have any suggestions, or you want to help us try to crack that Iris of Reality blues build, leave it in the comments. We will get back to you on that. And I'll turn it over to my 3 guests here. Final words, anything you guys want to say? I feel like, to cut canon for a second, we initially were like, let's make this quick.
Yeah.
It ended up going really long.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it did, because I feel like we have provided a lot of thorough information, and if you are out there looking for help to build a deck, or to get into this game or into this character, hopefully you learned something from this video. So, boys,
I was gonna interject really quick, Jim. I think
go for it.
if Legend Story Studios' official YouTube page has been posting these budget Blitz deck tech videos. If you haven't seen those, if you're newer to the game, I definitely recommend go looking at those. And for budget Blitz, if you're a new player, I really feel that Prism is one of the better classes to try, because it's really easy to play. All you're doing is attacking them with an attack action card. That's really your entire game plan. when you draw your hand of cards, you just think, okay, what can I do in my turn? I know I can block with this card. And that's like a really good fundamental way to kind of get your feet wet and just dip your toes in the water of knowing that I'm going to have 3 cards in my hand. I'll block with this one. I can attack, arsenal, and pass it back. And you don't really have any crazy tricks going on. There's no like, warrior shenanigans, reprise, AR, attack reactions, defense reactions, all kind of instant speed stuff. It's a very straightforward way that you can play at a basic fundamental level, but still have a very effective strategy in a format like Blitz.
I just want you to say again that playing Warrior and Dorinthia's doesn't take the average bear, because if you ask Jim that question, he might have a differing opinion.
Dorinthia is the easiest character to play.
Oh, sure.
I'm just kidding.
I'm just kidding. She's tough.
Though. She's not easy.
No. Oh my gosh.
I just want to thank you guys for, what is this, like we're going on like hour 6 right now. You guys got to watch Titanic twice here. But make sure to drop comments making fun of Bob up here. Just, compliment him on his guns though. But yeah.
Who's on top right now?
We appreciate you guys listening here, and hopefully, you took this in setting. You didn't listen to this. You didn't listen to the 4 of us just rambling in one sitting. Hopefully it took longer than that, but we do appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. And so
thanks for tuning in.
With that being said, just like Bobby just said, thanks for tuning in. The Roundtable of Rathe is out. Until next time, take care.